Welcome back, my ironclad prenups. And they'll say, as long as you find a God-fearing, wholesome Christian woman, there's no problem. You don't have any fears of divorce or infidelity because she is a Christian. And now it sounds like a good argument, but I've noticed over the past 4 or 5 years, these families I knew growing up who were like the model, the ones very involved in the church, the ones who were very kind of self-righteous, they sent out the family newsletters about how everyone's doing, they've ended up just, being train wrecks. The women have started having affairs, and it's all started with them going out and getting a job and with someone who's a coworker. And Muslims have said for a long time, don't let men and women to work together because there's too much of a risk of emotional or physical attraction developing. I am not a Muslim, thank Allah, but I did say in the video on why men are afraid of working with women that if you put two people together, there's a high probability that some kind of attraction will form. And if there's even a slight attraction, it's probably going to snowball from there. You say, no. Well, you met your husband, you met them, probably spent a lot of time together, then you get comfortable and you end up together. All right? Is it so hard to understand that if you spend 8 to 10 hours a day with someone, you're working with them, maybe having lunch with them, the same thing could happen? I mean, it's just a suggestion, right? So I bring this up because there's this article, it's from a while ago, but it's really savage. It's still so accurate to today, and I think it shows how deluded a lot of people are in the idea that, well, if you have a religious belief, everything else is, X is X, everything's taken care of. So I'll go through this, I'll be clicking around a little bit because it's a long article, just bear with me. It's, I was unfaithful. I thought my marriage was strong enough to withstand any threat, but I wasn't immune. 2 years ago, when I admitted to my husband Bob that I'd been unfaithful, I was prepared for every response except forgiveness. In the end, I had no choice. Here's the good part. At age 41, I was an unlikely candidate for an extramarital affair. Bob and I had been married for 19 years, and we were active in our church. I'd just taken a job as a secretary in a large public relations firm. Keep this in mind. Most of my friends had already found... She went there because she wanted to help boost the kids' college fund. Okay, maybe a good cause. Most of my friends already had found their way back to careers they put on hold when they married. For a long time, I envied their shop talk, expanding responsibilities, updated wardrobes, and the occasional splurges their salaries allowed. Now it's my turn, I thought. So she starts out saying it's for the college fund, but then she says, I really want to, be materialistic like my friends. So let's just make that clear. So she had a difficult time adjusting to work, so she gets assigned this guy Steve, the resident technology whiz. And he recognized my insecurity, key point, and he gave me encouragement, and he said, long hours and hard work, we can overcome it. So he said, let's schedule some Saturday morning sessions and reward my progress with follow-up lunches. He sent me funny messages via email and insisted I respond so I could learn the right codes and commands. I eagerly participated in the silent dialogue and didn't stop several weeks later when his notes took on a decidedly personal tone. He noticed everything about me, my revamped hairstyle, a different cologne, and wasted no time in complimenting me. Although his attention set off internal warning signs, I ignored them. I was an adult, after all. I could halt our friendship at any time it became uncomfortable. Okay. We move on. On the surface, my marriage seemed strong enough to withstand any threat. Me and Bob, her husband, had enjoyed a warm, comfortable relationship, short on spontaneity, but long on commitment. I loved Bob, and he loved me, and daily assurances came not in words, but in our willingness to pitch in and share duties. If romance had slipped away, I never thought about its absence until it suddenly reappeared, courtesy of Steve, in the form of silly cards propped up against my coffee mug, flowers tucked under my windshield wipers, post-it notes tacked on my computer screen. I was being pursued, and it felt good. Yeah, the romance was gone. And by the way, women, if you feel the romance is gone in a relationship, you can make an effort as well. Like, it's that really funny video this black dude did about Valentine's Day. He brings his wife the chocolates, the cards, everything's sentimental, and then she's like, okay, time to spice up the bedroom. And he's like, hey, where the hell's my card and my chocolates, right? It's not just a one-way street. So when women say, oh, my husband, is not being romantic enough, it's like, maybe you should make an effort too. I found myself comparing Bob to Steve and always giving Steve the edge. Bob was dependable. Steve was exciting. Bob made me feel secure. Steve made me feel young. Bob wanted to build a future. Steve wanted to enjoy the present. Classic. Comparing your boyfriend or your husband with other men and deciding what can I get that's better, what's good for me right now. Classic, evaluation tactic. You couldn't talk to anyone about your confusion because then you had to justify growing attachment to a man that wasn't your husband. I withdrew from my family, church, and friends. Right, so all the being involved in the church, all that stuff didn't matter. If she was a Christian woman, she would have cut it off as soon as it got, to this point, but she didn't. And so she asked for forgiveness. Her husband forgives her and then tries to basically be romantic again and like keep up the illusions of a real marriage. People think that I'm a horrible human being for just pointing out reality. If you claim all these personal beliefs, it doesn't mean anything if you're a slave to your base instinct. Because you could say, well, but she really wanted to, she really felt, I don't know, maybe neglected by her husband sexually. Well, I mean, there's things you can do about that that don't involve you specifically cheating, right? So I'm saying that this is the mentality, unfortunately, that pervades so much. It's like, well, I've got a good relationship, I'm a Christian woman, but I'm looking for something else, and it always starts out in the workplace. So you might make the argument now, as I've made before, that maybe men and women should not work together nearly as much as they do. Because, as I said, if there's a little bit of an attraction, this type of thing will happen. Here again, Bob was doing things the right way. He was a good husband. He was supportive. And yet it didn't matter because he wasn't interesting enough. He wasn't living in the moment enough. It made her boring. And that's, I guess, the great message we have to learn from this. That don't assume just because a woman's a Christian, just because she's very religious, she attends church, this one was very active. Don't assume that means it's a good guard against the failures we've seen with so many of the other marriages in the modern day.